Hey,
There she is.
how are you doing?
Very well. How are you?
I'm okay. Yeah, I haven't seen you for a long time. How have you
I
been?
know. I'm doing well as we can be for the circumstances. How are you?
I'm good. Well, according to my standards, I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right and stuff. So thank you for having me on. I'm happy to be on here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you on here. Our team is so excited for this segment, and we're hoping that we're going to have, a lot of our clients, as you know, we're an agency. We deal with a lot of small business owners who've been severely impacted by COVID-19, and so we would, want to bring you on here, talk about emotional awareness. And before we get started, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do, and what you're all about.
Yeah, so I am a life coach, and I usually am a life coach for physicians, small business owners, real estate owners, and I also do Brene Brown's work for the World Bank and many profit
Wonderful.
organizations and non-profit organizations. And I also have a YouTube channel which has over 500,000 views right now.
Oh, that's
And
amazing.
yeah, so and I'm a mum, so I'm a mum of two preteen girls who are playing hockey right now, so it might be a bit loud. So
Nice. Well, I'm
forgive
glad
me.
out there playing. I actually want to let the audience know that Imani was my coach and has helped me through so much as a leader, as a female executive. And I'm just so happy to have you on here with us today. I love Brene Brown's work. Many of the people listening love her work as well. So it's wonderful that, you are a certified emotional awareness coach with her. And we're just really excited for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's life-changing her work. She's quite different from other people in that, she has that whole Me Too attitude, which is that whatever you're going through, I'm going through it too. It's not so much the wounded healer type of, doctor, client
Right.
type of relationship. Is that we're all in it together. And I think that's what makes her work so different to other people and why it's really she's doing so well. And, the whole Devon Great Lead team is doing so well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's life changing, and one of the reasons why we wanted to bring you on here today was a lot of us could use some coaching and some guidance as business owners, as leaders, and just individuals. We have been overcome with emotions
Mm.
from the beginning of the pandemic. And I think it's natural for us to feel what we're feeling. But, could you tell us a little bit about some of the challenges that you've been seeing people go through or that have been presented to you?
Yes. I saw this meme the other day that said the most negative word of 2020 is positive. Like, like everybody's on Instagram, how they're so grateful for what they have and they try to be positive. And although positivity is important, but really it depends on what you mean by positive. If it means repressing your feelings, if it means not being honest with how you feel, then that's not what we mean at all. So, I put this post up the other day about the emotion grid, which is
Mm,
basically we're supposed to, a part of the human experience is that you're supposed to experience all the emotions, not just the positive ones, right?
mm.
So you're supposed to go from hopelessness to rage to joy, back down to jealousy, then back up to gratitude. Like you're supposed to feel everything. And what's happened, what we call in pop psychology, is that we like to sort of ignore the unpleasant ones, and we see it as a sign that we're ungrateful and that we're not, you know what I mean,
We're
where
weak.
we're weak. That's a really good one. Or first world problems, that's a really big one. First world problems, a lot of people aren't experiencing their own pain and their own losses because they know that other people have it worse than them. But that's not really how emotions work. That's not how the human being works.
Right.
And if anything, if anything, when we allow ourselves to feel our emotions, we naturally move through it. We're just supposed to go up and down like a yo-yo, and to not be emotional means not. I guess this is where people get confused, right? When they think, okay, what is emotional intelligence? I think what it means is that you recognize it, and as long as you're not sort of hurting other people, right? That's where you're
Mm.
most likely to go wrong. When that rage becomes, you're inflicting your children with it, or your employees, or whatever it
Or
may be,
yourself. Yeah.
or yourself, right?
Absolutely. I mean, when we are going through a wave of emotions, because like you mentioned, it's natural to go through a wave of emotions, and social media can be this place where obviously everything seems like it's perfect on the outside. But just unraveling that a bit, and you find out that everyone has their own set of challenges. But as we go through waves of emotions with COVID-19 and the different feelings, especially not knowing what's in the future, especially if you're a business owner and you have people who are relying on you and you're providing people with a livelihood, and really not being able to see into the future in any way. We try to stay as hopeful as we possibly can, but there's still so many unknowns. What are some of the mechanisms you think we could use when we start to feel like so much is out of our control?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many little things that we can do. I mean, number one, you heard, is the whole like oxygen mask on your face first, like as they say in the airplane, right? Like, to really take care of yourself. And the question becomes, what does that mean? What does it mean to take care of yourself? And a lot of the times, I think where you might want to start, and you've heard this so many times before, but it's only because it's so real. It's only because it's so true that you've heard it so many times before. It's that you got to take time out to take care of yourself, to do the breathing, the yoga. It's like, I think one of the best things I've done in quarantining is really limit the amount of exposure I have to content, whether watching the news or being on Instagram. It's just so much out there, and it's creating so much panic. And so I would say how you take care of yourself would be to really turn the TV off a little bit, right? And to, like Gabe Mate was talking about that when he was talking to Russell Brand. He was like, he had a yoga practice, and he was doing the yoga for every day, and then he stopped it for a week. And as soon as he stopped it, he felt all this anxiety. He was feeling all this anxiety. He was feeling so much pressure. And then he was like, okay, let me get back on the yoga practice. And then when he started doing that, just, I think he only does like half an hour a day. Nothing outside of him changed. The world is still the same, but he all of a sudden was able to recenter himself. So it really goes back to that. Until you take, if you're spinning, it's surprisingly, it's what you have to do is take the time out to do something that's outside of your work, outside of taking care of somebody else. It's really right.
And to remove yourself from that whirlwind for a little bit, to clear your mind and like figure out what is going on next. And many of us are dealing with the feelings of scarcity right now.
Yes.
That's a big one. Obviously, you don't want to fall into an emotion so much that you can't pull yourself out of it. What would you say are like some exercises that we could do if we find ourselves kind of falling into a pit of emotions? How do we, like, what are things do you believe in mantras, or do you believe in like a saying that you hold on to, that you re-say to yourself to pull yourself back up? Or what are some like kind of tools that you would recommend for us to not get sucked into negative emotions or thoughts?
Yeah. I would say after, like I was saying at the beginning of the call, after you sort of allowed yourself a little bit, right? So you allow you a little bit of time to go into that state and just figure out what your negative emotions are. One way you can pull yourself out would be, like you mentioned, the affirmations. So how affirmations work is that when you say something, or when you write something, it really literally starts rewiring your brain, it reorganizing your mind. There's so much power scientifically to using the words or writing stuff down. So you would have to, you say something, even if you don't believe it. Say, oh, I know there's enough work out there for me. Whatever your fears are, I know there's enough work out there for me. I know I'll be okay, because we have always been okay.
That's a wonderful affirmation. If someone can type that into the comment, I know there's enough work out there for me. I will be okay.
Yes, you will be. Because think about it this way, like, I mean, we always have been okay, right? Anxiety comes from thinking about the future. But whenever you look at your current moment, you are fine, right? You have everything that you need. It's like, and then I think it was Eckhart Tolle that said that, where he was like, anxiety comes from thinking about the future. And what it is, that is that you can see the problem, but you don't see the resources that you will have to be able to take care of that problem and see the imbalance.
Can you say that one more time? That was so good.
So basically, anxiety comes from worrying about the future,
Mm-hmm.
and what you see is just the problem. But then when you're in that space, you'll also have the resources and the tools to be able to overcome that problem, but you can't see that bit yet because you're not there, right? And
Right.
so you're worrying about all the things that could go wrong, but you don't see what you'll have to be able to make it work.
Mm-hmm.
And and you will, like think about all the things that you are worried about it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Imani knows me quite well. She knows,
Yeah.
she, as I mentioned, she did coach me at some point in my life. And I do plan to continue working with you. And um, one of the, one of the things that we do with our company is, again, we work with many small business owners. And sometimes, one thing that people don't always realize is your leader, your boss, the owner that of the company, the physician that you work with. These people are just people,
Mm.
and they're dealing with challenges and stress and the emotions just like everyone else. And these people could use some help with the type of language that they should use with their teams.
Mm.
In Brene Brown's work, Daring to Lead, she talks a lot about like rumbling and language with emotions.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on some things that a leader, a business owner should be communicating with their teams at this point?
Yeah. What type of language, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, the leader, I mean, like I was saying first, at the end of the day, it really depends on how much work you've done on yourself, so once you've sort of taken the time out to take care of yourself, it does naturally flow. It would naturally flow. So I mean, like you mentioned before, the hope bit, right? Where would the hope come from? You might want to ask yourself, like, knowing that like we were saying, things turn out to be okay. So you'd have to, really, again, if you can't feel it yourself, at least to say it, to say it in your mind. But so I mean, I'll be honest with you. I take, like it's like leader is about having responsibility, but really, what are you responsible for? Like, ask yourself that. What are you responsible for? And it is, and once you figure out what you're responsible for, and then it's not necessarily all their emotions and everything in their life, right? You could take a step back. How much of your employees are you responsible for?
Mm-hmm.
Once you figure that bit out, then you can sort of take a more nuanced approach, because I know us leaders, we take on too much of responsibility,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're
Right.
all going through this together. I mean, it's not, and also to remember, it's not a personal problem, right? We're
Mm-hmm.
all like, if things don't work out right now, it really is not because of you.
Right.
Right? More than ever, it really is not because of you,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That self-blame and that self-guilt, I think, is a heavy burden for a lot of people who feel like they have a responsibility to take care of people. But I think, I mean, what you mentioned is fantastic in terms of what am I responsible for, and focusing on what you can actually do versus, the unknowns.
Yes,
I
yes.
love that.
And it's always the same thing, isn't it? It's always, what's the next step? What's
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow? What was the one thing I can do? It always goes back to that, right? It always goes back to the little tiny stones that we need to take next, for the next step.
We have a question actually, which is, how do we foster a growth mindset even in the midst of confusion and uncertainty? Which is a great question.
Wow, the growth mindset. I mean, honestly, what really helps me and my clients is that that's how human beings are. Again, human beings were built to grow. And what we understand is that, all emotions, all skills, a lot of them are, even though some people, if you look at sort of your natural personality trait, there's like 5 of them, like extroversion, openness, and etc. So there are some
Mm-hmm.
natural things that you're born with, but most of it is built. You know what I
Interesting.
mean? Most skills are built for most humans.
Yeah.
And so that's the way the human being is, So you start off with the science behind it, and that's how it is. And so, and again, if you take it slowly, you can build it. If you understand that you take one step at a time, it can be built. Again, it's that whole thing about not taking it personally. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, so that's how it usually works.
it's something I think that we all need to be reminded of, which is I can improve. I can change my state. I can continue to build on myself. And this kind of goes into my next question for you, which is there's a lot of people. There's two voices out there right now. One of them is like, use this time to make yourself better and stronger and smarter. Make sure you come out of it with a skill set. Make sure you come out of it having organized your business, for example. Make sure you come out of it having organized your life. And then there's also the mindset of, this is a pandemic. Don't put so much pressure on yourself right now. This isn't a competition. So I'm kind of in a little bit of both. I do think that it is an opportune time for people to learn something for themselves, organize themselves, their business, etc. But at the same time, I feel I could see that pressure kind of adding to someone's stress.
Yeah, no. And that's a very beautiful question, right? And you're, what's probably most natural is that you oscillate between the two, right?
Right.
Like on some days or some mornings, you're like, oh my God, this is, you know what I mean? I'm really using the best time. But again, wisdom, the concept of wisdom really comes from knowing what you need next, right? What is it that you need? So you're taking it. So in this circumstance, what you're doing is, what is it that I need? Do I need to take a break? Or is it that I can use this time most efficiently? And also breaks, people see it as such a bad thing, relaxing, taking breaks, but they're not. Oftentimes what we see is that when we take a break, there's so much that it's like, when people go to retreats, right?
Yeah.
And then they relax. There's so much learning that can happen from there. There's so much wisdom, epiphanies. There's so much that comes from not doing what you need to do, So they're both good for you. They're definitely both good for you. But again, which one do you take? Number one would be the thing that you feel like you need to do next. And number two, allow yourself to naturally oscillate between the two, right?
Absolutely.
You can, right?
Yeah,
You're allowed
absolutely.
to do both.
Yeah, some days you might end up doing nothing, and some days you might do a little bit more. And I think that we beat ourselves up in the in between a lot,
Yeah, and I think that's really the point. You beat yourself up. I think that's where we need to do our work.
Yeah,
Right, the
absolutely.
self-compassion piece. Right.
We have another question that came in, which is, what are ways we can stay grounded with our thoughts during this time? I think a lot of people, their thoughts can just carry them away to, a faraway place. And someone commented, a digital fast, that could possibly be, could be a solution. What are the different techniques that you talk to your clients about when you coach them with, their mind that won't stop?
Yeah, I mean, what actually does stop your mind really running away from you is connection. You know what I mean? Like when your play or connection are two things that really help. So if you could, do Zoom calls with your family or friends, anytime where you're not when you're not thinking about the future, you know what I mean? Anything where you could be like talking to somebody, or whether it's watching a movie or just having fun with your friends, or just connection in general. And the definition of connection is that you're allowed to be where you are at with somebody else. So if you know somebody who would allow you to be in your own space, that would naturally relieve that stress. So that's one way that we can sort of relieve our stress.
Someone who you can feel like you can be your complete self around.
Yeah.
Or say something. Absolutely. I wanted to ask you your thoughts on this. I had read something where the Dalai Lama was asked, what's the, if I'm feeling depressed or down, what's the quickest way I can get myself out of this emotion? And his response was, stop thinking about yourself. Think about anything else, someone else, a piece of information or news or the kitchen or just anything, just not yourself. Think of anything else.
Yes, that's so true. And that's one of the reasons why we go into depression is that this constant feeling about thinking and feeling about yourself. That's what, there's many different reasons for depression, but that's one of them, surprisingly, right? When you're kind of narrow, that tunnel vision, and you can't see anything else. So yes, I definitely have seen that. Which is ironic, really, because it's both. And sometimes for some people, they need to think about themselves because they haven't thought about themselves for so long,
right?
To take care of themselves.
And there's the neglect aspect that comes through.
Yeah, like all wisdom, it's so nuanced. It's so you know,
Right. Mm-hmm.
paradoxical at times. And so,
If I'd like to open it up to any other questions. We're talking about coaching yourself through COVID-19, especially if you are a business owner or a leader or just someone, just a regular person like the rest of us who wants to learn some techniques to coach yourself through this. So please ask your questions. And Imani, I wanted to also ask you about the idea of talking to your employer or your workplace about uncertainty, and kind of, if you are someone who is dealing with scarcity from work or not knowing about the future, is there any language that you recommend or any ways for someone to kind of collect their thoughts if they wanted to be the person to speak to their team or to speak to their employer? Obviously, the country has been affected by COVID-19, and people are dealing with a lot of difficult conversations. So what about the other aspect, the other side?
so the question is so when you're talking to your employee about the uncertainty, what
Or
can be helpful?
an employee who wants to speak with their company or their leadership team, any
Yes, sorry, that's a really good question. First of all, I would say give yourself the permission, like you have the right. A lot of people are probably not, they're probably thinking, oh, there's so much going on. I'm not allowed to ask those questions. I'm not allowed to think about myself. You know what I mean? So
right?
give yourself the permission to say, yeah, I can ask my boss, hey, are we okay? What's going on? I know there's uncertainty, but I
Mm-hmm.
just want you to know this is where I'm at. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll give yourself permission first. Secondly, also to recognize that your employer is probably also going through a hard time. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right,
So
right.
to definitely approach it with compassion. And yeah, so those would be the two things I would say. Yeah, so the
That's wonderful.
permission, and that we're all in this together, really.
Absolutely. I think I love that, the fact that we forget to give ourselves permission to be curious, permission to ask questions, permission to feel something. So I love that point. That's fantastic.
Yes, permission
Thank you.
slips. Right, that's what it is. Give yourself
Yes,
permission.
I do remember doing that exercise with you.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, we have one other good question here, which is thoughts or tips on meditation. Do you believe in it? Do you think we should do it?
You
Do you
know,
have tips on it?
I was the type that really did not believe in meditation because I was all about this academia and the science, and oh my God, was I wrong? You know what I
Really?
mean? There is just so much that is so helpful. And Yuval Harari talks about this, where he says, in a world of so much information, and we've been constantly bombarded with information, whether it's like conspiracy theories, 5G, you know how it is, right?
Yeah.
With
Mm-hmm.
so much to think about, the only way that you'll be able to shift through all that information is by giving yourself some space
Mm.
to center yourself, to know who you are and what you think and what you feel. So that's why meditation is so important. So before you go into the world and they bombard you with what they have to say, you're
Mm-hmm.
giving yourself that space and be like, okay, what is it that I think, what I believe, what I need, what I want. And that way you're safer whenever you go out into the world or taking information from other people. That's why it's
Absolutely.
100% important. I really believe that. 100% for meditation. I was wrong. But yes, 100% for that.
If you're very new to meditation, what are some of your quick tips? Like when you started meditating yourself, what are some of the first things that you did, or your tips for a beginner?
I mean, I would start with breath work, really. That's really
Breath
easy,
work.
like a box breathing. So just like the three breaths in, and so basically you take a breath in, you hold it. So I'll do it with you actually.
Okay, let's
Okay.
do this.
Okay, go okay. Okay, go ahead. So just follow my lead. Okay, so we'll
Okay.
do it once. Okay, so take a deep breath in, hold, and breathe out. And that's it. And you can do that 3 times. And meditation is really tough for most people. It
Yeah,
really is a lot of tough. So I
it
think it's a
is.
lot to expect. So I think, yeah, so I would say start off with some breath work and only like one or two.
Music in the
Start small.
background, guided, anything from guided meditations from YouTube, or just kind of just,
Candles, yeah, if you can do it. Candles, guide, if you could do like, I don't know what, sounds, waterfall sounds, whatever works for you. If you can do it,
yeah.
definitely go for it. But again, 1 2 minutes if you can do it. It's life changing, surprisingly. It
I
really is.
have to, I mean, I pray regularly, but I recognize that meditation is different, which is, it's just about finding that time. And many of my team members meditate. Many of my team members are very into yoga. So I'm really blessed that I have a team that's very compassionate and just very in tune with their emotions and how to communicate that. But I mean,
Yes.
we have a comment that says, "Don't stop. This is so insightful." Thank
Oh,
you so
thank
much.
you.
I'm so happy you guys are enjoying it. I mean, to wrap up, I guess we would say that I think one, recognizing what's in your control, what's not, right? You mentioned that as a leader, kind of what are you responsible for? What are you not responsible for?
Yeah, right. A bit of self-compassion, right?
Self-compassion, giving
Yeah.
yourself permission.
Yes, permission to feel your feelings, right? Because no dark night lasts forever. Like, you know
Right.
what I mean? It's
Mm-hmm.
not going to last forever. Like all things, it will pass. And so just every feeling will pass as well. So allow yourself to feel it. And if you want to get out of it, you can try those, the walks, the meditation, the breath work. There's a lot that you can do. But again,
Mm-hmm.
it's okay to feel all over the place too,
Right.
you know?
Absolutely.
So,
Like you mentioned, and I'm going to take a look at that, at what you mentioned that you posted about the grid and the emotions. Right.
I'll send it to you. Yeah, I'll
Okay,
send it to you as
absolutely.
well.
And if anyone were to be interested in working with you as their life coach, what would they need to do?
Honestly, so recently I just did a bunch of free sessions to help people out. So if people are interested, I'm doing like 30-minute. I just did I did a many for physicians, 60-minute free
Mm,
sessions for physicians. And so right now I'm doing like 30-minute free sessions. Anybody is interested, they can just follow me and then DM me, and yeah, we can just take it from there.
okay,
If they are
great.
interested,
That's
I'd love to hear
fantastic.
from them. I love to hear
Great.
from
We'll
them.
have a recording of this up, but before we go, we got one more question. So let's get that question answered. How have you both felt and reacted to the quarantine? So I'll let you go ahead and start.
How have I felt? I have felt everything underneath the sun, you know? You know what I mean? I have felt everything underneath the sun.
Yeah.
And it really it's been both. It's been a time of self-reflection for me,
Mm,
and it's something that I've always wanted to go to retreats. I didn't know that I was able to do it. Things that I would have never thought I would allow myself to do, I'm doing. Like if someone said to me, "You're not allowed to leave the house for a month," I would be like, "No way." But guess what? It's possible.
mm-hmm.
So,
Right.
you know what I mean? We're
Yeah.
doing the impossible, and it always surprises me. It really
Yeah.
does.
Yeah.
What
That's
about
true.
you?
Oh my goodness. I would say, I mean, it's been a month now. The first 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks, I was, it was crazy busy during the day. And then at night, things would quiet down. And that's when my anxiety would start to kick in
Mm,
because it was quiet and I could think. And I wasn't sure if I should be scared about getting sick. I wasn't sure if I should be
mm,
scared about whether or not someone I knew would get sick, or I should be scared about the economy or work, or
yeah.
and so there was just so many things that were running through my mind. And now that we've kind of gotten to this point and we've all felt pain in some way or another,
Mm,
um, i I just keep trying to tell myself, like you mentioned earlier, like, um, do I
mm,
have, at the end of the day, what I need: a roof over my head and a family, or friends. I know they're not close to me, but again, to
mm,
call or to speak to, something to eat, and I know that sounds so like extreme, but in many ways those thoughts are comforting. um,
yeah. Right.
and I wish I could say that I've been exercising and I've been,
Yes.
doing all these things. I'm not, but I try to tell myself I will each day, so at least I have hope for the next day.
Yes, right.
But right.
Wow,
So,
that's great. That's what it is, right? Back to the basics, right?
mhm,
Right? Appreciate
right.
the basics.
And then also just using this time, I think a lot of people are to just say, what are the things that are making me happy in life? What are the things that matter to me? What are the things that don't? And just
Yeah.
realigning a lot.
Yeah, right. Same here. Just a lot of realigning. Didn't think I needed to realign more because that's what I do, but it's not true at all. A lot of realigning, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much. This was so helpful. We will repost this video on our Instagram TV, our IGTV channel, so you guys can follow Imaani and keep up with her great work. And thank you. And I'll be seeing you in a session soon, hopefully.
I definitely love to hear from you. Would love to hear from you. Take care, and thank you so much for having me. I hope to see you
Thank
soon. And
you.
if anybody, would like a 30-minute session or free, definitely reach out to me. We can figure something out.
Oh, that's
All right.
wonderful. So if you guys heard her, she's offering a 30-minute session. So thank you so much, Imaani.
Take care.
Take,
Bye.
bye.
Bye.